gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
So 3 important elections happened yesterday. 2 special elections in Florida, which is obviously a deep red state at this point, and a Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin election. And the Supreme Court election was a big deal. There was a lot of focus on it because of Elon Musk. Elon Musk threw his hat into this race. He was down there trying to rally up Republican voters. He did this whole vote buying scheme where he was offering $1 million a piece to random lottery. He keeps doing this. He keeps doing these giveaway lotteries in order to buy votes, and no one's stopping him. He hasn't been charged with any crime yet. It seems to me that Elon Musk is probably the most vulnerable to being charged with some kind of crime out of anybody, especially on the local level. I mean, obviously Trump's Department of Justice isn't going to go after him, but some of these local prosecutors in some of these states that Elon Musk is meddling in, I can't imagine there are none of them that are interested in charging him. And so I'm not sure exactly what machinations would have to go into that. But I mean, Elon Musk is a private citizen. Whatever immunity Trump has and the members of his cabinet have through him, because of the Supreme Court decision that decided that presidents do in fact have immunity. Elon Musk is one of the few people, maybe the only person, at least prominently in Trump's orbit, that does not have access to that same type of protection. And so it seems like if some local prosecutor somewhere wanted to go after Elon Musk, they could. What would happen? I don't know. It would probably attract a ton of negative attention from the Republicans. And so I imagine there's some hesitance to do that, at least at this point. But what we're seeing in these elections so far, these 3 elections are over now. We don't know what's going to happen with elections going forward. But it would seem that the more attention there is on these races, the worse it is for Republicans. And that is pretty consistent with the Democrat versus Republican dynamic all throughout the country in most elections. And this recent election was kind of a departure from that. 2020 was an example of the same thing where, the amount of attention that was on the election, the amount of urgency and media focus that was on that election. Obviously, it was a general election, so there's always that to some degree. But that disadvantaged Trump in that instance in a way that's pretty consistent with the usual Democrat versus Republican type of dynamics. A lot of attention, a lot of excitement, a lot of voter activation, pretty much across the nation, is bad for Republicans. Now, this recent election, 2024, is a bit of a departure from that, where there was a lot of attention on it. And before the election, it seemed that people were at least animated enough, at least understood the stakes here. And yet the turnout was low and people did not show up for Democrats really at all. And certainly not in the same force that they did in 2020. Now, if you ask me, I think if you look at it that way, it's a pretty straightforward dynamic. People recognize the importance of getting Trump out of office in 2020. Biden had 4 years and did not deliver enough that the Democratic message of, you need to give us more time, as opposed to putting these other guys back in power, didn't resonate. People were not happy with what they saw from Democrats, didn't see enough change, and so they voted Republican. You could argue that was the same dynamic that happened in 2016 as well, when Trump first won. So people being annoyed or bored with Democrats has been the number one thing that Trump has been able to utilize to win. So essentially what happened here is the Democrat-backed Supreme Court nominee in Wisconsin, or not nominee, but I guess now she's the nominee, or she's the Supreme Court elect. But the candidate in Wisconsin for the Supreme Court won, which is a loss for Musk. So he was backing the Republican candidate. He was making a big deal about it. And he was saying that, this is existential for Trump's agenda. And that's at least partially true. Because what's going to happen now that they were not able to win that election, and they lost it pretty handily, by the way. Wisconsin is a swing state, so that's not that surprising. I mean, it's good. It's very good for Democrats. It's very good for the health of checks and balances in general. But, it is a swing state. So the idea that things pushed back in the other direction, especially in response to Trump's first couple months in office, isn't that surprising, that there was an opening there for a real win for Democrats. But the attention that was on the race and the amount of excitement, the amount that Elon Musk was yapping about it, and the amount of attention that he himself brought to the race seems to have been the main factor that disadvantaged Republicans. And what's going to happen now is that, there's going to be more pushback from the lower level Supreme Court against Trump. And, this is on things like voting rights, abortion rights, as well as investigations into Elon Musk's companies, etc. So that's why he had a certain interest in trying to get a Republican elected in this instance. And he's been talking about how federal judges stopping the agenda of the president is unacceptable and we can't allow this, despite the fact that that's obviously why federal judges are there. So just blatant disregard for the Constitution, blatant disregard for checks and balances of any kind coming from Elon Musk. These guys are really going scorched earth. And I mean, this is in the Republican tradition. Even if you look at Mitch McConnell, Republicans govern as though their enemy will never be in power. And what that does is it means that they will do anything with power that they feel like they need to in order to secure their agenda, whatever the worldview that they want to force on the rest of us is. They have no problems using every lever of power at their disposal, even if it sets a bad precedent for them. And obviously Elon Musk cares about that even less than the average Republican. I don't know if these guys feel like behind closed doors, like Donald Trump is just going to rule as president forever, or if they're just not worrying about it right now. But the thing is that these elections that are going to happen up until the midterms and including the midterms are not going to go away. And there might be some instances and ways that they can kind of rat fuck some of those elections. But for the most part, those elections are going to happen. So if they lose those elections, it's going to hurt them. If they lose control of the House and the Senate before Trump is out of power, then the idea that Trump is going to serve another term, or really a lot of the worst case scenarios in the long term when it comes to Donald Trump, are going to have a little bit of a damper put on them. Now, we know that Democrats are not doing a whole lot right now. Whether they would even have the balls to impeach and remove Trump, I don't know. Because if things got that intense for him, he would probably start calling for violence. But the point is that there is still some energy in some of these elections that Democrats can utilize to try to reestablish some checks and balances here. The fact that this happened early on in Trump's administration is a good sign. It does not mean that he's going to slow down or take it as a cue to chill out on some of his more draconian policies. He's probably still going to continue to defy the courts, especially if they rule against him on things like immigration and abortion rights or whatever else. And so the other thing that happened is Republicans won the special elections in Florida, which is not very surprising. Florida is hardcore Republican at this point. It is a little bit of a closer margin than maybe some people would have said to expect. Really not that many hopeful signs there. Florida at this moment is kind of a lost cause. And while, the needle might have moved a little bit in terms of Democrats turning out or whatever, they still got beat by over 10 points, I think, in both cases. So, Republicans still hanging on tight there, but their majority is slim. So if there are other elections like this that happen, special elections that happen in the meantime, it's not going to take a lot to knock them out of power in the House. And already they're pretty paralyzed by the slim majority that they have. But what this reflects to me is that Elon is definitely not as popular with people as Trump. To the extent that Trump is popular, at least among his own voters, among the Republican Party, Elon Musk only seems to be benefiting from that to an extent. And I think that he has overestimated the level to which his particular brand of antics and communication translates to those same voters that voted for Trump. And I think Elon Musk, he operates off of ego. He wants to be not just the richest man in the world, but the smartest man in the world, the most powerful man in the world, the most beloved man in the world, the funniest man in the world. And so I think it hits him hard when he receives evidence to the contrary of that. And so I think that it's going to kind of determine a lot of the dynamic going forward. When it comes to the Republican Party, how they're going to handle these elections. They are probably going to ask Elon Musk not to be as involved going forward. Doesn't mean he won't be, though. Elon Musk is not really in a position to be whipped into line by the Republican Party. He owes them nothing. If anything, they owe him everything. So, if he wants to keep meddling in elections, if he wants to keep putting himself in front of every fight and saying stupid things awkwardly on camera to uncomfortable audiences, he's probably going to do it. And honestly, if we're talking about people who might be front runners to take the mantle from Trump, it's probably Elon Musk, if we're being realistic with ourselves. If we see an election in 2028 where Donald Trump is not the nominee, the idea that it's going to be J.D. Vance, I don't know. I mean, maybe it would be, but if Elon Musk wants to run, 100% J.D. Vance is going to get sidelined for that. He's going to be told to stand down if Elon Musk wants to go. And, the only question is, does he have the desire to do that? And does the situation feel like he has the ability to do that at the time? So this is the first sign that might beat him back a little bit. Again, doesn't mean he's not going to continue meddling. If he's smart, what this means is that he's going to stop being such a prominent figure in these elections. One of the things that has kept Trump relevant, even during the time that he wasn't president in between terms, is the fact that he continued to be a determining factor in special elections and smaller elections, local elections throughout the country. In some cases, he had a negative effect on those races, but for the most part, he was still able to sway things one direction or the other with his endorsements, lack of endorsements, how much he decided to back a candidate or whatever. So Trump remained a valuable and undeniable tool for them during that time. And it's not unlikely that Elon Musk will continue to be a valuable tool for them, whether that means continuing to dump money into races and not so much being on camera, or both being on camera and delivering money to the races. He spent a ton of money in this election in Wisconsin, and they lost pretty bad. So, other people also donated, people like George Soros and, other billionaires. Increasingly, these elections are going to be about who's funding them, where the money's at. However, this is an example of the fact that just because Elon Musk has more money to put into this stuff than anybody else doesn't mean that he gets to decide who wins. And I think the real lesson here is that by bringing more attention to this and by putting himself on the face of it, Elon hurt the Republicans' chances of winning. Whereas if this election was getting less attention, there's probably a better chance that Republicans would have won, because those are the type of conditions that they thrive in on a local level. So the lesson here is that Elon Musk is definitely somewhat of a toxic figure electorally. Doesn't mean that won't turn around at some point. almost certainly doesn't mean that we are not going to continue to see him all over the place in these elections. But it means that his presence will be controversial, not only on the national stage, but also within the Republican Party. And the more that wedge exists between Elon Musk and the Republican Party, the better, because it's going to create infighting and it's going to create the type of coverage of Elon Musk that is not going to reflect well on the Republican Party in general. And if there are going to be Republicans that feel that the only way they can save their brand is by going against Elon Musk. And that's a good thing, but it's risky for them. So, Trump will probably find ways to put a stop to that. But again, if Republicans are getting voted out and beaten back because of Elon Musk, at a certain point, they're going to have no choice but to force him out. The other thing I'm worried about here is that I think Democrats are probably going to take the wrong lesson from this, because they always do. That's what Democrats do. They learn the wrong lessons in every election. And I think the problem here is that a big part of the reason that this candidate won is because of opposition to Elon Musk. And that's great, but that is the theory that Democrats have been using to win elections and relying on over the last 8 years, is that if you just run against Trump, then you don't have to focus so much on your own policy. You don't have to focus so much on your own principle. You don't have to break with the party meaningfully on issues that the base hates, like Israel's genocide in Gaza. And all you have to do is point out how bad the other guy is. So the fact that this worked in Wisconsin is not good, because it didn't work at all in 2024. And that's a big reason that Democrats have been so out of sorts, is because they've got nothing to fall back on. They have no type of agenda consensus that they can use to excite their base going forward. And so they're trying to figure out what that is right now. So the fact that this win, already you got Hakeem Jeffries going on and say the voters have rejected the Republicans' toxic brand of Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And it's like, yes, that's true. But that is exactly why people hate you. And that is exactly why people hate the Democrats right now, is because you think that's all that you have to do. And the more results like this that we see that are purely a response to Elon Musk's repulsiveness or Donald Trump's repulsiveness, the more Democrats are going to feel like all they have to do is wait it out. And so that's not good in terms of them running any type of inspiring campaign, whether it's in the midterm elections or in the next general election. However, if Democrats remain complacent, then that could open up more opportunities for other political organizations to win more of that ground away from them. And again, I say this all the time, either force them to change or force them out of the way. So the political project of building up opposition to the Democrats from the left still has to continue, because that's the only way that they're going to learn that they have to run issues-based campaigns. And while this result is good, it's good for all of us, and it's good for the political situation, at least in Wisconsin. We should keep our eye on the fact that if Democrats become too complacent with the fact that all they have to do is criticize Trump, then they're not going to offer us anything. And we have seen that that is a losing strategy for them.